Hi everyone, welcome to DIY Ideas. So today I have a project for beginners, or a video for beginners. I wanted to do an episode on sewing machines, or precisely how to use them. So I know a lot of people out there want to get one or have just gotten one and aren't really sure what are the things they can do with a sewing machine. So we're just gonna go through the basics together, and you can of course ask questions in the comment section if I missed anything. So before we start, it's important to know before you buy one, if you haven't already, to check if the machine can do different stitches and which ones. For example, you can have a zigzag stitch or just a regular straight stitch. If you're a beginner, I wouldn't really worry about the brand or the company that makes them, because there are so many different ones and so many are good, so you might just get confused without it being necessary. So the one you see here is my sewing machine. It's just a standard one I got from the nearby store, so nothing special or fancy. So yeah, whatever looks good and fits your price range should be just fine. You also need or you can get your machine with a little pedal and a cable to plug into the wall so that you have power. So those are basically the two main parts of the machine, so the sewing machine itself and the pedal. The power cable you can usually find on the right side, as well as the power on and off button. The pedal also goes on the floor below your feet when you sit at your desk, and that way when you press it you can work with it. Here I'll explain the pictures and symbols that we see on here. So let's start from the bottom. This little lever is for reverse direction of your stitch, so you simply push down all the way to activate it. This one you use when you finish a project or a stitch in order to secure it. You just go a couple of times forward and backward, and that way you're making sure that everything is staying in place. Above it, you see the programs of the machine, meaning all the different stitches you can do. The programs you can choose on your left wheel, so the letters symbolize each of the programs. The right wheel is for the length of the stitch, so how far apart each stitch should be or is going to be from the next one, so even that is customizable. The A program is the regular straight stitch. So the default stitch length is between 2 and 3. The B and C are the zigzag stitches, so the more you go from B to C, the wider your zigzag stitch will be, depending on what you want and need. So B would still be straight, but the more you go to C, the more zigzaggy it gets. And here I also would stay between 2 and 3. D and E and F are other zigzag stitches that you don't really need if you're a beginner. Generally, if you're using stretchy fabrics, you should use the SS symbol that you can see on our right wheel here with the regular A stitch, because it should work a lot better then. If you would use A without the SS, you would risk ripping the stitches as soon as the fabric stretches. So with SS you can prevent that. G and the stretch stitch together can help fix frayed fabric by going around them basically. So if you aren't sure what I mean, you can see here the pinkish stitch in the the G section. So by doing that, the sides cannot fray anymore. So the rest of the symbols on the left wheel are for buttonholes. So you can do the beginning of the hole with 1, second step with 2, third with 3, and fourth with 4. And you get the whole buttonhole done then. So I'll show you how to do this in another video since it's a bit more complex. This wheel is for the thread tension, but I'll explain first how you can put your thread in. So first you need these little metal, let's say poles sticking out, and you can pull them out to simply put your roll on. So before we begin, I will show you one more detail, namely the spool. So that's this transparent little thingy. Sometimes it can also be out of metal. So this goes into the machine in the bottom part, and we always need a top and bottom thread. This is usually empty like this, and you need to put the thread of your choosing onto it. So this depends and changes from project to project. The other part is the spool cap, but let's first do the thread part. Put the spool onto this ring and push right. So before we do that, take your thread to the left, to this little metal thingy, and go exactly between the two pieces with the thread. Then go back to the spool and go a couple of times around it. Now you can take the thread out here on top, but you don't really have to do that. Anyway, push the spool to the right. You should notice the click, maybe even hear it. Now turn the machine on and press the pedal a bit. Don't be scared to push it, so it's supposed to go fast. If you did everything right, this is what you should get. And the more or longer you press, the more thread you get on there. So usually we stop when the spool is completely, let's say, filled or full, but I won't do that now. Cut off the thread and push the spool to the left and take it off. Now we can go to the next step, putting the thread where it should be. You need to check if this metal hook on the left is looking like this, pointing in this direction, and if not, like here on the second opening, then you need something else, and that would be the wheel on the far right. So this wheel has the same function as the pedal. It moves the needle up and down. It's important for the beginning and end usually because the pedal moves the needle really fast, and in order to start precisely and end precisely as well, the wheel comes in handy. You simply turn the wheel and then the needle goes up and down. So I'll show you in a moment what I really mean by that. It's basically just a slower version of the pedal. When we turn this wheel, this is what happens. The pedal does the same thing, but a lot faster, so sometimes it's really useful. So let's get back to the metal hook we wanted. And when we turn the wheel, our hook appears. So this is what we need to take the needle through. This is our starting position. So let's start now. take the yarn and don't go through the button-like piece, but through the first hook, and just this one, not the other one for now. Then go through the right opening and switch to the left and go up. Really simple. Then watch that you leave it a bit looser and go through the second hook. Then again downward with the thread. Now go by this hook and one more time over here. I'm not sure if you see this well, but let me do it one more time. There, and now use your wheel to move the needle all the way up. And take the thread through the needle. Pull out a bit, and if you notice any tension or that it's hanging somewhere, it means you did something wrong. So it's a super easy way to check. So let me explain this part as well. So we have this needle here we just worked with. Then we have the foot. Usually you can find a lever on the back of the machine or maybe on the side. Okay, so here the little lever, when it goes up, the foot goes up as well. So this should be always up unless you're actually sewing. Here under the foot is a metal plate. So this is where you can see the markings. For example, here. So the lines that you see here are marked 2 centimeters, then we have 1.5 centimeters and 1 centimeter. On the other side, you have the same thing. So this serves the purpose of always knowing how far you are from the needle or later the actual stitch. It helps with precision. So also a good thing to know as a beginner is that if you want to do something that's, let's say, 40 times 40 centimeters, you always take your fabric a bit more than that. So let's say 45 centimeters times 45 centimeters so that you get 2.5 centimeters more on each side, because we always sew a bit away from the edge, and that way we actually need a little bit more space, because if you took 40 times 40 you would as an end result get a bit less. So we never actually sew on the edge itself, so that's where these markings might come in handy depending on what you have planned to have left. So let's come back to the spool and its cap. So for that we take off the plastic lid here. For most sewing machines it's usually right on the corner by the needle, and you can just take it off. Usually you get the smaller parts packed inside of here. Now here we have a little, let's say, door, and when you open this door you get the spot where you put your spool in. So we can now get to that part. So opening the door and putting the spool in. Take your little spool and your garn should be coming out on the right side. And then take the cap and take a look first. You have a little piece you can lift up. So to kind of pull it out. And this little part from the inside, you see where your spool goes. Now take a look. You should find a little section where your thread goes and take it through and to the front. It's a bit tricky at the beginning, but it shouldn't be too difficult. And if you did everything right, when you pull the thread, the spool should be turning. Then pull the thread a bit more and put the cap into the slot. Before you do that, take a look at the slot. So here is a little opening. Here goes the cap, and here on the bottom, another opening. Now take a look at your cap, and you should be able to tell how it's supposed to go in. Push hard so that it clicks inside. Now we can't really pull it out anymore, and that's where this part comes in handy. Now we are taking the top thread that we left here on the surface and go through or down with the needle. And notice how the thread is also going downward. Take the needle up and the thread will stay down. And that's how you get both garns on top. It should look like this. They shouldn't stay caught when you put the lid back on. And we are ready to start sewing. Now we need to do a couple of test runs. So take a leftover piece of fabric or even paper and prepare your petal. It's really fast, so it takes some getting used to. That's why it's always better to try it out on something you won't need later than to start a project right away and get used to working on it while maybe not doing the project as neatly. So let's do the 2 centimeter line, a line. Put the foot down like this. Your left hand should be on your fabric or paper. You can also take the thread around your fingers as well. Right hand goes next to the foot and you will push it a bit into the needle or make sure it doesn't slip. So now let's slowly press into the petal. And when you slowly press into the petal, you see how the needle is working. I'll do different things so that you can see what it looks like. You can also do this with a piece of paper and then simply take the thread out, and you can see just the holes on the paper and see what the patterns would look like. What you could also do is take a pencil and simply connect those little dots to make it even more obvious if it might seem as just random dots. So that's also an alternative. Here is our zigzag stitch, so you can notice how the needle goes left and right. Always take care that your needle is not in the fabric when you take the foot up and the fabric out. Here is our zigzag stitch. Okay, something happened now, but good, then I can show you. So you have to take care that both of your threads are there. Sometimes it happens that the top thread simply jumps out, so let's see where it got stuck and then we can fix it. And just repeat then. So here are the stitches that I tried out. Here are different zigzag stitches and the regular one as well. And here the D and the E you can see too. I tried to do the frayed stitch as well, or the stitch for the frayed fabric. So mostly we use the standard stitch or the zigzag stitch, but just so you can see what your options are, it's always good to try it out. Now let me show you how you can change the needle if it breaks or if you want a different kind of needle. So simply turn the screw, and it's best if you hold the needle as you do it, as it might jump out before you actually expect it to. Here is our needle. So this one is still sharp, as you can see, and it obviously isn't broken, so we can keep using it. And now I can also maybe show you, well, I hope you guys can see this well. So how the top part of the needle has a round side and a flat side. Every needle has this, so I'll show you which part goes where in the machine. Here are some of my needles, so there are very different ones. Sometimes you get a set of needles with your machine, sometimes you just get one and you buy a universal set separately. I recommend using those because their quality is usually pretty good, so they don't really break easily, and you should be fine with one set for a couple of years. So they might not be the cheapest thing in the world, but they are gonna last you a long time. So I'll show you the different needles you can use. So in such a set, you get all kinds of different ones. So the numbers indicate the size or thickness, or thinness if you want. So 70 and 80 are very thin, and 100 are the thickest ones. For example, the 100 you would use if you did jeans, or 92. So the thicker the fabric, the thicker the needle. The thin ones you usually use for thin, delicate fabrics, even for jerseys sometimes, although there are also special needles for that, and obviously they're called jersey needles or the stretch needles. There are also regular stretch needles, so the twin here means that you work with 2 top threads at the same time. So this basically means that you get 2 stitches on top done at the same time. Sometimes it can be super useful. Most sewing machines also often have 2 spots for top garn exactly because of this. The standard needles you will need for most fabric types are 80, maybe 90, so depending on what you're working with. Only in case of jerseys and stretchy materials, I recommend taking the jersey or the stretch needles, as they are easier to work with. Now again, the same. Let's take a look at the needle, the flat and round side. The flat side should be in the back, and then simply push it in. Push up and screw it tight. Check if it's stable in here. And this was pretty much the last step. So this is it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and if you maybe have some questions that weren't answered, feel free to post those too. If you enjoyed and found this useful, feel free to shoot a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel as well. There are going to be more sewing videos, but also a bunch of different stuff, so you can check that out as well. So thanks for watching DIY Ideas. I'll see you next time, and until then, have a great day. Bye!